Welcome to the National Workplace Bullying webinar series for the month of April. Today we have the pleasure of our phenomenal, awesome, amazing, fantastic board member, Wilma de Soto. She is going to be presenting today on the pitfalls in workplace bullying. This webinar will discuss potential pitfalls encountered in workplaces that are often missed or overlooked by targets of bullying. Changing social norms and behaviors of society adversely affect the workplace, and potential targets should have an idea of what to look for at work. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Wilma de Soto.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad to be here. I'm so glad that you came. Uh, I'm talking about pitfalls in workplace bullying because I'm doing this webinar for two reasons. One reason is people have changed quite a bit in the 21st century, and two, people haven't changed quite a bit in the 21st century. This is why I'm doing this webinar. Let me go to the first slide, please. When most people think of workplace bullying, this is the image that comes to mind: a bully boss. Okay? And I will dare say, because I've done research on this, that that is an American cultural ethos. It's an American cultural ethos that's handed down from, believe it or not, slavery, chattel slavery, of having people under you that you can berate and destroy and dominate and not consider their human failings or their humanity. And that's very prevalent in the American workplace. I read a good article called From the Plantation to the Corporation, and there's several articles like that if people want to follow up on that, because that is truly an ethos. So this is what the dominant image that comes to mind when people think of workplace bullying. But I think it's time for people to consider another image as an important part of workplace bullying. And if you look at the photo, you'll see three people huddled together and one person alone. And I really feel that people are not looking at their colleagues' role in them being bullied at work. They miss a lot of things from their colleagues that contribute to it, because a bully boss cannot be successful without a mole, if we want to say in the spy genre, or an insider in the amongst colleagues to report things to and to tell tales to. They can't succeed without that. They don't do it all alone. Your colleagues have a lot to do with how people are bullied at work. The bosses, this is from Martin and Moran, 1996 to 1998. The boss's attacks are only the beginning. Co-workers get in on the act. And you got to remember that always. Friends who used to fill you in on gossip now stay away, hardly looking in the face. Rumors abound that you are becoming incompetent. Before you worked well in a team, but now everything you do is undermined. You have nothing to do except for occasional assignments that are set up to make people fail purposely. They purposely give people things that they know they're not going to be successful at and say, well, see, this person is no good, he's got to go, or she's got to go, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not just the boss, it is your co-workers. There's been a decline in public decorum in American culture, a big decline. Public decorum is defined as appropriate and polite behavior in social situations, encompassing etiquette, manners, and respect for others. Propriety, etiquette, manners, politeness, courtesy, and decency. This doesn't mean that you have to go around putting your coat on a mud puddle for somebody to step in or anything like that. It is just a decline in human interaction and lack of social skills that people do not have anymore. When you go in public, you see people behaving kind of like they're at their home amongst their family, and that everyone loves them. the people who cut you off in the traffic. No other traffic is here. I got to get where I'm going. Or what I want supersedes everybody else's rights. This is a thing that has been happening in our country for a while, but it's really hit ahead, especially when working with people who have this kind of cultural ethos or mindset. It becomes very difficult because people do not treat you with respect just for being a co-worker anymore. Solipsism is rampant, and solipsism is defined as the quality of being very self-centered or selfish. Also, the view or theory that the self is all that can be known to exist. Therefore, when you have people who have this mindset, only what they want is what they see. And whoever's in the way has got to get out of the way because it's me or nothing. And I put this here because this, I feel, has a lot to do with it. I have a cell phone. I've had a cell phone since very early 90s. But now people look at their cell phone not as a means of communication, or it's their life. Their whole life is in there. So when their whole life is looking into a screen or doodling on their computer, you lack the skills to interact with other human beings. They're not developed, they're stifled. They stay kind of in the id stage of doing this. And this is very, very rampant in our country and in the world now, I guess. But you don't see anything besides what you want and how to get it. And everybody else just is someone who like take advantage of or steamroller over or ignore. Here's the office workplace. And this is one of the first pitfalls that I talk about. People's attitudes and personalities do not automatically disappear upon entering the workplace. If you're an idiot outside of work, you'll be an idiot inside of work. If you're a bigot outside of work, you'll be a bigot inside of work. If you're a social bore outside of work, you'll be like that inside of work. Attitudes that can and do seep into the workplace are these: social, racial, and political. Those don't stop at the door. So one has to be cognizant of where these people live when you're working with it to protect oneself. Not just to find out where they are, but to protect yourself. Now, I got this article from Forbes about Gen Z workers. And Gen Z are being fired at record rates months after they get in there. And some of the reasons why Gen Z is having such a hard time is because people, how you say, it's the attitude that I'm just special because I've showed up here and I'm breathing. So I don't really have to have an attitude where I am trying to do a good job or come on time or dress, for the part. It's a cultural thing with the generation, and people are finding that they're getting fired straight from college. Their very first job, they can't make it. Here's the link if anybody wants to look at it. I had something here that I wanted to read from that and why they get fired. Let's see. Billionaire Warren Buffett made his first million by 32. Now he's telling Generation Z that the key to getting rich isn't just hard work, but the company that you keep. Also in this ethos, backstabbing has become the new office norm. Employees say blame shifting, snitching, and setting up others to fail are rampant now in the workplace. That is because you have a lot of people who don't know what they're doing, who think they ought to be a star anyway. They get to Hollywood, and they want to know if they're working in a studio or TV studio or something. They want to know how come they've been here 3 whole months and they're not a producer yet. It doesn't occur to them that maybe you don't have the skills or you have to put in the work and you got to sweat hard about it. But no, they think automatically When I arrived there, I'm supposed to be the star. And as a teacher for 40 years, I saw this coming up in children years and years ago. They complained to teachers when they didn't want to learn something that they didn't want to learn, and they had parents back them up. So you have a lot of people who don't know what they're supposed to know, but think that they are entitled to the star treatment anyway, because that's the way they were raised, and that's the way people socialize them to think about themselves. It's all about my self-esteem and not anybody else's. No one else needs consideration except for me. And this is a phenomenon that's really affecting Gen Z. If they can't keep a job because of that attitude, you have to really think about it. Today's TIC CEO took over at age 31, and he tells the Generation Z who are aspirational to ditch the fake it till you make it. That was kind of like a motto of that generation. Fake it till you make it. You don't really have to know anything. You just go in there and you act like you know, and everyone's supposed to like fall over and let you have your way. And those of us who work hard, who know things, are targeted. That's the number one reason for workplace bullying, professional envy. If you're a competent person, a well-meaning person, even a popular person, that's envy to those who aren't. Those who constantly strive for perfection, and I admit I'm a perfectionist, and have a strong drive for success may be targeted by bullies. Bullies may perceive their achievements as threats or try to undermine their accomplishments out of jealousy or a desire for control. So a competent person in a workplace full of people who are barely hanging on is going to be targeted. It's going to be destroyed to get them out of the way. So the other people who really don't want to work as hard or don't know as much can take their place and succeed. You have to watch out for that. That's one of the main reasons. So if you're a hard worker and you try and do things right and you try and please people, that's going to set you up as a target. Social envy is another pitfall here. It's a myth that all victims of bullying are loners and outcasts with no friends and no social connections. Often it's popular and well-liked workers that are the most vulnerable to workplace bullying. If this describes you, bullies believe you pose a threat to their own popularity and social status at work. Some bullies for clicks and target others who threaten their status or social standing. If you are well liked at work, this could be the reason behind attacks and jabs at you from the office bully. So, and remember, the word clique is defined as a group of people formed to keep others out. It's not just a group of friends who have, lunch together in the break room or whatever. It is targeting others who threaten them and their status at work. So people have to really be cognizant of that. Professional and social envy often leads to deliberately excluding people from conversations, decision-making, or work-related events. Oh, didn't you know about that meeting? Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I was supposed to tell you, but I guess I forgot. Purposely ignoring, disregarding, or avoiding someone, such as by forgetting to invite them to work meetings. Emotionally manipulating people by using shame or guilt to cause feelings of inadequacy, undue responsibility, or unworthiness. And when you're a perfectionist and you're striving hard and you're doing the right things and you're working everything, anybody who criticizes that when you know you're doing a good job makes people question themselves. Oh, I guess I'm not doing this right, or I must have done something. And a lot of people who are bullied at work are people pleasers. So when someone dares to suggest that they did something that wasn't quite on the money or it was wrong, especially by a person who's a co-worker, who doesn't have that kind of drive and that kind of talent, it's a setup. Concealing or distorting information to achieve personal goals. That's when you get a message um, later on, after the fact, before it's too late for you to do anything, like show up and show them up. That's a deliberate act. And undermining someone's work to hamper their progress or their ability to succeed deliberately. Oh, well, that's so good. Well, I could have done that or whatever. But any kind of critique of your job, especially when you are a hardworking and you are a perfectionist and you want to please people and do the right thing, that makes you a target. Feigning ignorance, changing the subject, or canceling meetings to divert attention from an issue. All of a sudden you were supposed to do something, then all of a sudden it's canceled because you might shine at that meeting. Therefore, you know, it's not going to happen. And I'm sure people have experienced things like this, where they were just all of a sudden blocked out for no reason. Other factors. It's always the threats to control. The cliques that form want control over the social atmosphere of the workplace, period. And if you're not in that clique, you're a target of that clique. Insecurity or low self-esteem and depression happens to targets because when you're a perfectionist and you work very hard and you try and do the right thing and cross all the T's and dot all the I's, somebody questions that, it can send people into a depression. And when they get into a depression, they're not as able to fight back. And that's the modus operandi. That's the formula. Rendering you helpless from defending yourself. Personality characteristics of targets, they're people pleasers, as I was saying. They want to be recognized, they want to do the right thing, and they're usually very competent. That's a red flag. And just plain prejudice. Some people don't like you because you're gay, or because you're black, or because you're Latino, or whatever. They just don't like it, so they're going to just work behind the scenes to undermine you and destroy you. Everyone's seen this phrase before. Sharing is caring. And in the age of cell phones and laptops and tablets, people share an awful lot of information. But in the work environment, sharing is a pitfall. Sharing is actually bearing. You're bearing all your stuff so that people can attack you. I don't believe in sharing everything at work. I really don't. If the person is not a friend of mine, and by that I mean someone who's been to my house, I've been to their house, or we've gone out, for dinner, or we've gone to a movie together. Otherwise, these are colleagues. They don't need to know everything about your life. They don't need to know that if your son is autistic. Oh, they don't know if your, husband, they don't need to know if your husband didn't come home last night until 4 in the morning. All these kind of things that people share when they think they're being sociable are red flags for people to attack you. So I would say be very judicious about what information that you share about your personal, private life. I just had lunch with a group of women I worked with for 30 years, and we meet every month. But there's a lot of things they still don't know about my life. And that's the way I want it. I have to have that barrier between what they know and what they need to know. So be circumspect about sharing. Okay, this is Sherm. Sherm and my husband was in recruitment advertising for like 30 years, 35 years actually. And Sherm was one of their clients. And Sherm stands for, it's a pitfall because it's not your friend. And people go to human resources when they have a complaint or beef or they're being mistreated. But SHRM stands for Society of Human Resources Management. And that's the key word, management. HR works for management. They're there to make sure that the company or corporation doesn't get sued. So if you go there and you're weeping and you're railing about this person said this to me or that, or the boss did that, and what do I do? Don't think for a moment that's not going to get back to the boss or the person that you are talking to them about, because it will. Because anything that they think they're going to do to stop it without stopping it actually will happen. So, human resource, if you ever go there, you have to be very circumspect about what you tell them because it will get back to the people who are doing this to you. Preventative care. Be circumspect about sharing. I said this before. People don't need to know that you were out at happy hour until nine o'clock last night or whatever. They don't need to know all those things. It's none of their business. And I'm not saying that you can't be cordial or that you can't be friendly, because you can. But people don't need to know your private business that people share. It's amazing what people put online. It's just amazing to me. And when you do that at work and you have these so-called team initiatives and all that kind of stuff, which is supposed to help people work together, because a lot of people don't know how to work together. But still, they're a pitfall for people. So be careful about sharing. Follow procedures that's outlined in your office or company. And that but is human resources. You have to understand that they are not in the corner of the worker, but the corner of the company. And three, this is tough. Realize you're going to be alone in this fight. You don't have people to help you there, really. You don't have backup from the company to help you, really. Unless you take actual litigation or legal action, you're going to be alone. And most importantly, plan an exit strategy. If you decide to step to the company or get an attorney or take any kind of legal action to save yourself, you got to be ready to get out of there as well. You just don't go in without having a strategy to get out. You have to have both. It's very important. And here's some resources for you to look at. I will leave this up on the screen because a lot of them are very good articles that helped me a lot when I was going through workplace bullying. And I did an exit strategy before I started, and I used it because at one point you realize they're going to just keep on going and they're going to keep on destroying you. It's not going to get that much better. Unless you wanted to sue someone privately outside the workplace for what they did, that might make a difference. But usually, once they start, just by the nature of human beings being venal and callous, and in this age of whatever, and solipsism and self-centeredness, and not being qualified, but wanting to have the glory at work. So, in order to do that, we have to destroy the people who are qualified and who do a good job. You have to have that strategy to get out. So if you plan that to confront it, you got to plan for that too. Not that you'll need it, but it's a good idea to have. Okay, well, that's my slides, and I want to know if anyone has any questions. And oh, I forgot you can't get hit by rotten tomatoes through a computer. Oh, it's okay. Yeah, you can ask questions. Okay, shoot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wilma. That was such a great informative webinar. I have a question for you. So you talk about in your presentation, be careful what we talk about at work, be careful what we share at work, right? And I agree with that 1,000%. Um, you never know how someone is going to perceive you, and feel threatened or intimidated, or just not like how bright you shine, right?
Exactly.
Yes. And so, in this world that we live in, with social media and, women such as yourself who are fantastic, who sit on, a board, who, have a presence on social media, who, post about not necessarily your personal life, but, hey, I'm, speaking, teaching a webinar, with the National Workplace Bullying Coalition. And if your coworkers, find you on social media or connect with you on social media, they are potentially going to see these amazing, fantastic things, that you do as an advocate, and can even use those things, potentially against you in the workplace. So what is your suggestion, in regards to, how we can handle that essentially? I know what I have done in the past. Um, I mean, anytime I've gone into a workplace, I will search for coworkers intentionally. I'll take calculated steps, to find them on every platform that I'm on, and essentially block them all, just to prevent them from seeing, anything. Of course, that's not always like a surefire plan, because they have children or friends, on social media that they could potentially, go and search and find you if they really wanted to do that pretty easily, right? So, what would you recommend, to those of us, who are on social media, who have a presence on social media, not necessarily, with our personal life, but just in general?
That's true because that does leave you vulnerable. And I would stick to, strictly business on social media where, where I'm not socializing with friends. But my friends, I'm trying to think of how the best way to phrase this. Eh, Social media is very invasive, and one has to be really circumspect about what one says. I remember a tweet of mine years ago was seen by somebody in the hierarchy, and it was just one snarky remark, but it got back to my principal, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, that's okay. Well, all right, well then, no more of that. That's how I learned it. But my thing is more the personal sharing because if you are telling people that, let's say your husband has a drinking problem, okay, that's a red flag. That means you're probably in a codependent relationship. And codependent relationship people are usually people pleasers because they want everything to be right. Okay? Team building is another thing. Team building is not what bullies want. So if you're on a team in social media, you're going to have to be very careful about what you share there. I feel if you have something that's going wrong in your life and you get in the break room and you break down in tears and people go, oh, what's wrong? What happened out here? And you go, but it up the book. And next thing you know, that can come to bite you right on the tail. You just can't do that at work. You just can't let people into your private world. I mean, you can be social, and that's where public decorum comes in, that has gone the way of the Conestoga wagging with social media and all the cell phones and the tablets and the video. Everybody wants to put a video of themselves on TikTok, or they want to put a video of themselves on Instagram or whatever. I don't feel that that's good for your coworkers to be able to see all those things. You're going to have to put, designate an audience that you want seeing your stuff, you know, and the other people aren't going to have access to it. That's what I did. I designate who I want to view something on social media. And I don't leave it public where other people can do it, or a kid can find it, or a kid of a coworker can find it. Hey, mom, look at this. You really have to be careful about that because the nature of the beast is they are looking to target and destroy you because they can't measure up to who you are, and they want that control. Therefore, don't give them any ammunition to do so. Whether or not you might think you didn't or not, you never know how other people perceive it. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think, you made a great point about when you do share something on social media, you do have the option of designating, like you can create essentially like a group or a list of, like close friends or family. And when you make a post, like essentially on most platforms, I believe you can actually select when you're making a post, who you want to see that post. So that's a great suggestion. That's a tool that I actually haven't implemented. Um, but I see, you know, just so much of potentially what I've shared on social media over the years. And I've been in pageantry and I've, won national titles in pageantry and I've, modeled and my husband's modeled with me. And, I share, this real women with real bodies making a real difference. And my message is always positive and empowering and inspiring. But, a bully potentially is, going to see that and potentially, feel inferior to it or however they feel. And, you use it as, something to use against me, to target. When I'm just trying to like empower women to love themselves and love their bodies. So,
Yeah,
it's,
I understand what you're saying.
yeah.
I'm just saying that, it the modern workplace with all the social media stuff is a trap for people to get bullied almost. Not
Mhm.
just, and not just because of the bully boss, as I said before, they can't do it without the help of your colleagues. There's just no way. And people don't look at their colleagues in that way, and they share way too much. They talk way too much. They talk about their kids. They talk about how much they bought a car for, or how much their house cost. And I might be living in a one bedroom flop house or something, and I'm hearing someone just bought a house for $650,000, and they're my coworker. Uh, you know, and if I can only manage to live in a flop house, what do you think I'm going to do? I guess that's no other questions, huh? Thanks, Kame.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you know
Looks
what?
like Joette has a question. Yeah. You're
Yeah,
muted, Joette.
yeah, I
Hi, Joette. You're muted.
gotta. All right, I unmuted myself, but I guess somebody is controlling me. But yeah. Um, but that I agree with you. I've kept nodding because that's what I'm going through. And that's my environment. But the silence, my keeping circumspect also increases the increasing their want to target me
Yeah,
because
the antipathy.
then it seemed like, oh, I'm better than they are. I'm not a team player. I'm not, you know.
Yeah,
Do you know what I
that's
mean?
about control.
Yeah, no,
See,
but
when you're circumspect, they can't control you as easily.
right. And I'll do it. It takes a lot of you have to walk in there and do it.
Yeah,
But then they see that as, oh, she's so overly confident. And they don't realize that um yeah, I'm doing it to protect myself.
yeah. But still, you can be social. You could be cordial. I was at work, I did a lot of things and if I'm posting something on Facebook, like I had a memory come up where 2 years ago my nephew and his wife and their two daughters came to Philadelphia, And I made this whole. I told them to come over. I made some snacks for them, and then they saw the snacks. It was this like buffet. It had bacalaíto frito, codfish fritters and guacamole, and tortilla española, which is Spanish potato omelet, and pastelillo de carne, which is puff pastry like Cuban style, filled with meat, and empanada de chorizo, a sausage pie. I had all that, and I posted the picture on Facebook. Now, something like that is fine. Now, that could also is a potential thing for jealousy because people might say, "Oh man, I wish I could cook like that," or "Oh, I would like to have some." But it's not anything that's going to kill me at work. Okay,
Right.
people might not like it, but when you start sharing things about home and hearth and family, and people do that all the time now, it just astonishes me how much people tell people things they don't really need to know. And just because you want to have a how you say dichotomy of your private self and your public self, that doesn't mean that you're standoffish or that you don't like them. But if they take it that way, it's because they lost control over you. And so see, I'm evil, so I would ask something like, well, why do you think you have the right to control my private life? You know, uh, hamana, like Jackie Gleason, like, but I don't understand. Well, maybe it's also a thing because I'm, a black woman, and so a lot of people that I work with don't know anything about black people. So it's easier for me to have that kind of dichotomy. But when people feel comfortable sharing stuff around other people, that's a pitfall. And you gotta really check that out. What am I sharing? I mean, just take a 10 minutes and just think about things that people asked you at work today or yesterday or last week, and like how did that come up and why is it coming up? That's what I'm saying about being circumspect. I'm not saying you got to be snooty because that's what they're going to accuse you of being snooty, but it's the fact that they have lost control over a certain part where they want to control and dominate. It's about control and undermining. Never forget that. Does that make any sense, Joette?
Yeah, but once it's happened, they don't revert. Do you know what I mean? Once you're typed that way, then like new faculty coming in,
Mhm.
as you said, they're brought into that gossip group. They don't even know me. They don't take the time to know me, but they've got that mindset already. And
Because
and
you,
as a senior faculty member, and I have stayed remote working from home since all of this happened, um, just to avoid that. But I'm going to be going up next week because I have to present a case. But already I'm feeling, just the comments that are being made in the Zoom meetings, oh,
really,
yeah,
such as, give me an example.
these senior faculty are trying to ding us when we come up for promotion. Wait a minute, I haven't even presented the case.
I wonder
And
where they got that idea from.
well, I let
From themselves.
one of them say it, and then another one said it, and then what I said was, I would suggest that you choose your words carefully because words matter. And there was like just complete silence.
Right, of course.
But I know that afterwards it was, because then all of a sudden that conversation dropped. But they don't understand. I mean, they just don't understand that words matter. I mean,
Yes. It's called public decorum. Remember that
right.
that slide that I had before?
And
Etiquette,
who's
courtesy.
yeah, who's starting? Well, the candidate who's up for promotion is starting the rumor, has started the rumor, but it's
It's very
so,
painful because you
yeah,
did nothing wrong. You
no,
did nothing
no,
wrong.
but that doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that they see you as an impediment to their progress because they're not, they don't have what you have on the ball. And also, like I said, those attitudes don't change in the office. People are prejudiced against age. People are prejudiced against color. People are prejudiced against gender assignment, socialization. Those come into the office, you know. So as an old woman, I just feel people leave themselves too vulnerable and not really take the temperature of the room or whatever. See, I'm a teacher, okay? So it was my job to smell people. That's what I called it. Not just with my nose, but just like to know who's who and how they're thinking and, where they're coming from. And that's the way I could reach them if I knew that. If I don't know that, I can't reach them, okay? If I don't know who the kids are or the students are, I can't do it. So I gotta have my antenna on about like people. So I tend to do that where I go. I read people very closely
So,
because
so what's the solution though? Because again, working with my students and almost to a student in, my punishment actually was for me to assign me to teach this research course that I turned into, okay, let's research on workplace bullying, which now they've taken that away because that became too successful. But I want to
of
celebrate with
course,
what I've done. But the students will say to me, a lot of this was triggering because a lot of them are being bullied. And that's where what do we give them? I mean, for me, yeah, I've got my arsenal and I'll take a deep breath and I'll get through this. But for them, when they're talking about the things that and you're right, it's always the most competent, it's always the most hardworking person, or it's someone who, it is gay or is um, promoting um, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then they become targeted. And if they're, not tenured within their workplace or whatever,
yeah.
they're at risk. So what's, you know, you say have a backup plan, and especially in today's world, I mean, right now, people don't have a lot of options for a backup.
No, but no, they don't. You're correct. I agree with that. But you have to have something. If you're going to really go there, you got to do something. You got to find some way that if you need to leave, you can. That's all. And I think that's very important. Forewarned is forearmed. If you're going to get into it, fine. If you're going to stay there and be bullied and not say anything about it, then you don't need an exit plan. Okay? So I'm only saying that for people who are really going to take this on and
Right.
and defend themselves. And like I said before in the other slides, solipsism rules today. It's only myself. There is no cordiality or teamwork. That's how you call it, red herring that can trap people because people are not thinking of other people.
Well, I
And
want to
what I
hope that
said
there,
about Gen Z
yeah,
getting fired and all, how they've been raised with that kind of solipsistic mindset and high self-esteem that they never made a mistake, and and you can't tell Egbert or Gertrude that they're wrong, or Egbert or Gertrude's going to go home and tell mommy, and then mommy's going to come up and she's going to beat up the teacher or scream at the principal, and then this is how their sociality has been formed. It's totally different from people like us,
right. But
who
so now, but what, so I guess what I'm asking is, how do we affect change then?
you can't feed into it. That's the first thing. That's one thing you can control. Okay. That's one thing you can. I can't go back and make these parents raise these people right, or I don't have time to make them my kid and teach them how to be respectful to others, and that kind of thing. I go out in public and I see people wearing pajamas in public. Okay, now to an old coot like me, that's just like unconscionable. You used to go out, you dress for the outside. And you knew that once you stepped outside of your home and family, that your rights are secondary to the greater good. There was something called the greater good. Now it isn't like that anymore. It's me, 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 and what I want. And if I can't do it, I'll just eliminate those who can do it better than me, and then I'll be left. So this is the mindset we're dealing with. So I know I'm not helping you, but my best advice is still being competent, cordial, and circumspect. The three C's: competent, cordial, circumspect. Because people share entirely too much. It's amazing. I bet if you look at your work social media and really check out what people are saying, you'd be surprised that I might be right about that.
No, no, you are. But I'm wondering how the rest of you feel about with this with the current political climate. I mean, my view, and maybe I'm being biased about it, but I think things are going to get worse.
They are. You should see the generations coming after Z. And that was, I taught some of them, right before I retired. It's going to get worse. And I remember telling my husband, at his job, he went to a new agency after the one he was at for 35 years closed, and he became senior strategist there and everything. And I kept telling him, these guys are solipsistic. And here's the other thing that's the problem. They can't connect dots.
No,
Okay?
no,
They see a task and
right.
only that task. So how this relates to that and how this can come from this task, it doesn't click with them. And it's the same thing. That's a lot of that has to do with the way they were schooled, because everything was these stupid standardized tests, and all those things didn't relate to one another in tasks. You just had to learn this and that's it. And then you learn that and that's it. So there's no continuum and there's no schema. It's like building a house starting on the third floor because there's no foundation from
Wilma, I
home.
just want to interject because we're
Uh-oh.
down to about the last 5 minutes of
So
our
I'll be quiet. I'll
presentation.
be quiet.
No, 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 no. Um, Joette's presenting some great questions.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like to ask is there any, Dorothy, do you have any questions? Mr. Sunderman, do you have any questions in just the last few minutes? And then if there are just any final questions, what I would ask Wilma is for you to share your contact information so that if anybody has any additional follow-up questions, I know Joette knows how to contact you directly.
Yeah.
So she can reach out to you for follow-up questions. But any other questions, Dorothy, Mr. Sunderman, any questions for Wilma as we wrap up?
Yeah, I just want to thank Wilma for the presentation. I've read, as I was at the very beginning before this recording, I gave a little bit of insight to my experience, and it's going on 2 years since that happened to me. So the residual effect still lingers, and
Yeah.
I have overshared probably on the social media, trying to be as discreet, but I want to share in terms of what happened to me and how it can happen to others. And that's my approach, is try to share insights of a person that probably fits all the profile that you mentioned in your presentation. People pleaser, um, hardworking, and the person that became I fell out of a clique, and that person turned on me. And I saw the pattern when I was within the clique, didn't realize how bad it was until I got out of it. And then I basically pulled the mask off the individual, and that's when things went to hell. And she was able to
Yeah.
get others to rally with her, pretty much lie by admission to HR, and then move me out. So but I've read a lot about this topic. You gave me more food for thought. I and If I can get the presentation, that'd be great. Joette, I feel for you. I've signed up for multiple different academic research on this topic of workplace bullying, and academia is like the number one, and I had no idea. I work in a private sector, and I had no idea academia was such a bad place where this really happens frequently. And it's sad. And I just, you think the most professional people at universities and those higher institutions would be the best representatives of inclusiveness, but man, I don't know what it is, but they're not.
There's
And
actually
they,
like three professions that really have a lot of workplace bullying targets. Teaching, and like you say, academics, teaching, nursing,
yes,
and social workers.
I just,
And they're all kind of cut from the same cloth, except that as a teacher, I don't have the stomach to be a nurse. And as a teacher of kids, I don't have patience with ridiculous grown-ups, so I couldn't be a social worker. But
my
they
wife,
have that talent that
yeah,
I don't have
yeah,
for
my
that.
wife's a teacher. My middle child is a brand new nurse, so these are definitely watch outs I have to give her. Like,
Yeah,
hey,
these
this,
are perfectionist leaning things. These are
yeah,
people pleaser things.
yep,
These are things that the radar goes up. Doo, 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 doo. So the three C's would be, be cordial, be circumspect, and oh, what was the third one? Ooh, I forgot already. Cordial, circumspect, and well, it'll come to me probably midnight tonight when everybody's asleep. But
So
but
Wilma, share with the group. I know you had a slide up, but share with the group where people can reach out to you, and anybody who is watching this webinar after the live presentation. Where can people connect with you? How can they contact you if they have additional questions for you regarding your presentation and the information that you've shared?
sure, you can do W de Soto, WDESOTO at me.com. Or that's easy to remember, or will.phil, because I'm from Philadelphia, will, W-I-L dot Phil at Comcast.net. So,
And do you share?
but
Do
I'm
you,
sorry I couldn't solve the problems in an hour, but the purpose was trying to make people aware of the pitfalls and where they
absolutely
might have screwed up and what they should look out for.
wonderful.
That's what the gist of this webinar was, because a lot of people miss those social sides. They're trying to
Mhm.
fit in, they want to work, they want to be nice, etc. But they really miss those things, or they give people the benefit of the doubt when and see, I'm evil, so I say, well, nobody deserves the benefit of the doubt for me. Everybody's a suspect until proven otherwise. Well, see, that's just me being horrible. But
No, no.
but it's not a bad thing.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Wilma. Thank you for the presentation. You shared so much valuable information.
That's right.
Yeah, and it really caused, those of us that are watching, to really consider, how we're showing up at work. So thank you. For those
Yeah.
of you that are watching, we have three more webinar presentations. Every presentation will happen for the next 3 weeks here at our YouTube channel. So please register for those webinars that you can attend by registering for those webinars. It's posted on our website and also on our LinkedIn page. So we would love to have you join us for the next 3 weeks. Thank you again so much. Thank you, Wilma, for your presentation. It's been
Well, hope I
wonderful.
hope I helped.
Yes, thank you
I
so
tried.
much. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you. Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody.